Okay, thank you everyone for your indulgence as we sorted out the technical stuff and we sorted out the slides. I guess that's technical too, but and thanks so much for sticking around. So I think everyone in the room here knows me, but for those who are watching at home as well, my name is Anneke Smit and I'm director of the Center for Cities at Windsor Law and associate professor in the Faculty of Law. And I'm here with Dr. Donna Kashian, environmental science professor at Wayne State University and the new United Nations Regional Center of Expertise director at Wayne State, and Genevieve Nowak, who's also working at Wayne State, has a long history in environmental advocacy and environmental policy in Detroit and in the border region, and has joined the RCE team at Wayne State as well. This is the first time that we're in the room together with each other across the border. We've been working on the collaboration that we're going to talk about today for about 2 years as a full sort of 2 university team. So it's very exciting to be in the same place and to welcome Dr. Kashian and Genevieve today. As we did this morning in our first session, we will start by acknowledging that we sit on the traditional territory of the indigenous peoples of this community, including the Three Fires Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and we recognize the centrality of our work in reconciliation, in guiding and being absolutely central to the work that we do around the border, which of course it does not have the same significance for all peoples, and understanding the importance of working in a decolonializing way when we're working on environmental and sustainability issues. We have a short space of time today, really just a chance to continue to talk about what we are very excited about, which is this cross-border bi-university collaboration, which has received a United Nations designation and really is opening up a totally new way of being able to work across the border on sustainability in a very holistic way that is going to leverage the opportunities on in both of our institutions and in both of our communities as well. So we have just a few slides. I'm going to spend just a few minutes sort of laying out what the RCE is, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to Dr. Kashian and Genevieve to talk a little bit about where things are moving on the Wayne State side. And I will say unabashedly that part of our reason for doing so is that as through a lot of this collaboration, we are learning a lot from Wayne State. The comparative work my students who work on policy know, looking to see what other universities are doing and other institutions often can make things a lot easier for us. And I have to say the way is being paved by Wayne State. So we're thrilled to be able to highlight that work that's happening and to be able to hopefully live up to expectations. I know this is very small print, and so I don't expect you to be able to read it. It's partly there just for my own prompt. But the first question I think we all need to be asking consistently or answering is, what is a UN RCE? So the United Nations Regional Centers of Expertise program comprises about 170 institutions or 170 collaborations worldwide. It's a program that is run through the United Nations. It's in alignment with the UN Sustainable Development Goals and other international standards, which speak at a global level, but which require increasingly local collaboration and local implementation to actually give meaning and to do meaningful work. And so it's a way of sort of moving from the most broad obligations and the most broad statements to a very localized, very concrete, outcomes-oriented and collaboration-oriented approach to solving those, one of the, what we like to call the wicked problems at a local level. In this case, our collaboration is cross-border, and that's what really is so unique about this one. We're kind of the little sibling on this side of the border sometimes that always wants to be noticed by Detroit. And what is actually so great about this collaboration is that it started with Wayne State. They came to us begging, not begging, I don't mean, but asking nicely. And saying, we want to do this. We've been doing a lot of sustainability work over the years. We increasingly understand the value of collaboration. We want to think about how to work with other institutions as we sort of figure out what we are already doing and what we can be doing better as an institution. And a really deliberate choice, I think, was made to do that cross-border rather than just on the other side of the border, and to really think about, and I know this runs through Dr. Kashian's work as well, and it's relevant to the work that my students do in the policy clinic that's focused around cities and municipal governance. There was a real focus on, let's think about the border, the urban region of the border and the region that crosses. Healthy Headwaters Lab does a lot of work in terms of thinking about water and biodiversity in urban spaces as well. So there's a real alignment there. So Wayne State came to us. It was a process of about 2 years all tour. We've been at it about 2 years, I guess. A team, I want to acknowledge Dr. Edwin Tam and Dr. Lee Rodney from engineering. Again, we have lots of engineers today, and the School of Creative Arts, as well as myself, who were the team on the U Windsor side, and we were matched by several colleagues at Wayne State. We've been joined as time has gone on by Nadia Harjawar, our new sustainability officer at U Windsor, as well as Dr. Joel Gagnon from the Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research, who has also been supporting that work on this side. Again, the vision is really to sort of put into actual practice through partnerships the ambitious but absolutely necessary goals that are being enunciated at an international level. For my law students who have taken international law, you know that a lot of those norms are soft law that require a lot more than just a statement to make them actually impactful. What's happened over time? Again, about 18 months of work with this cross-campus steering committee, and I'll just say it happened all through COVID. So we met entirely virtually. And it was a long process, as you can imagine, like any sort of process for designation or recognition or funding. Although there was a cross-campus steering committee, we also did a fair bit of consultation. A number of colleagues, including Dr. Fabria and I think Dr. Brene, have been involved in giving input, in being part of conversations on our campuses virtually. During that time, we also did outreach to the community. Karina Richters, who was here from the City of Windsor for the earlier panel, was a big supporter from the City of Windsor. And I'll talk about the community partnership in just a moment, but it was a long process. We talked to people. We wanted to figure out, if we're going to do this designation, what is it going to mean? It doesn't come with money, it comes with recognition. So what is it going to mean? How do we use that how do we leverage that to be more ambitious and more responsive with respect to climate in this community? And also what is it that's sort of unique about that cross-border piece? I'll just say President Biden is in Ottawa today giving a talk, so there is no more opportune moment, I think, for us to be thinking about what that cross-border relationship is. And one of our local MPs spoke in the House of Commons yesterday about how important that border relationship is and what is so unique about Windsor and Detroit. So we're very much in line with that. And I will say, I think this is an opportunity for universities to lead and to do this more ambitiously and more concretely than we often see in terms of government response. So a joint collaboration. I've mentioned on the screen, we've mentioned just a few of the places that we see the potential for collaboration from a thematic perspective: climate change, economic and health disparities, social inequity. I think there's a more complete list too later, but really thinking about the sustainable development goals writ large. We want to be able to leverage what the border has to offer, both on either side of the border, and then what is special about working together on these issues. And again, this is the only cross-border RCE that we're aware of in 170 around the world. So this is really something special that we need to be celebrating and we need to be leveraging. So a beautiful Venn diagram just to show some of the sustainable development goals that we focused on. As you know, there are 17, all of which you see displayed beautifully on the stage today. We had to choose some, and we chose the ones that we thought were most relevant to the region, and also that sort of either highlighted places where collaboration would be particularly useful or where we were particularly well situated to collaborate. So again, a slightly longer list here of some of the possibilities, some of the shared challenges and opportunities that we enunciated in the application that we wrote. We obviously share an automotive history, and there's a lot about that is celebrated and should be on both sides of the border. It's the heart of our economy. We know we're in a time of transition. We know that transition is moving towards EVs and other ways in which the auto industry has to respond. But we also know, I think all of us in this room are aware that sustainability has to be much more than that as well. So how do we sort of leverage that automotive history and still move and celebrate it and still move into the green economy as we need to ensure jobs and economic vitality for this region in time to come. Land use is a huge issue that ties right into climate on both sides of the border, and there is a long legacy on both sides of, I will say, I think, sustainably, environmentally, and from an equity perspective, poor land use decisions that have been made and a real need to do differently. Public health is a strength of Wayne State, has not been historically at Windsor, but with the co-location of the health unit coming in the next year or two, this is very much an area. And having just lived through COVID, we know that this is part of the the SDG framework that we need to be taking very seriously, thinking about local governance as we do through the law school and through the Center for Cities, and understanding local governance as being a key partner to getting anything done on sustainability in our region. Anti-racism and EDI, again, must run through all of the work that we do, and all of the SDGs, of course, have to be viewed through those lenses and have to be responsive to the history. And I will say the long history in many ways of racism in this community, and also the long history of the Underground Railroad and its legacy in this community. These are pieces that have to run through all of this work on both sides of the river. Indigenization, again, something that as a university on our side of the border, we have just started to grapple with in meaningful ways. A long way to go. And that's, as I understand it, also something that Wayne State has been interested in sort of talking with us about. The Detroit River and the Great Lakes, water as the great connector between our two communities, and very much again at the heart of the work that the Healthy Headwaters Lab does, and GLEAR, the Great Lakes Institute for Environmental Research. Air pollution we share, and lastly, transportation mode shift challenges. We are the automotive capitals of our countries. How do we again embrace that, but also understand that that is not the sum total of how we need to get around our communities, and how do we make those shifts, and how do we lead as university, research and education-based institutions in doing so. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we did want you to see the list of some of the community stakeholders that have already been involved and already expressed their commitment to this. So while this is a research and teaching based or focused collaboration coming out of universities, it is very much about bringing the community along and working in collaboration with the community, as so many of us do more and more in our work. It's very much the future of research in this region, I think. What do next steps look like? And then I'm going to turn it over to our Wayne State folks, because their next steps are much more fleshed out, I would say, than ours are at this moment. Thinking about resourcing, we always have to think about where is the money, where is the staffing, everything else flows from that. Building out a governance structure, so we want to lead by example, and we want to live through our values and our principles. So thinking about whose voices need to be at the table, and who's making decisions both at a community level and at a campus level, about the kinds of work that the RCE will do, promoting and developing the mission and vision of the RCE, fostering a binational sustainability community. There are things that happen. Dr. Fabria and Dr. Kashian have worked together. They have a really effective collaboration. There are collaborations in the community as well, but historically, a fair bit has even been written about the challenges of working in a cross-border way on sustainability. We can't afford to do that anymore. So here is a vehicle through which we can do some of that. New channels, new working groups, really thinking about what are the actual ways that we're going to work together, and the actual projects that this umbrella can take us through. And then coming back to the comms piece that we heard about in the session previous today, whatever field we're working in, communications is so important. And I was saying a huge shout out to the Healthy Headwaters Lab, because I think your team is doing that so well in understanding the importance of not just doing the work, but telling the story. This kind of just gives you an idea of some of the places that we identified potential as we were moving through the application process. Teaching, research, community engagement, all being part and parcel, and overlap between all of those pieces more and more, I think, in any sort of meaningful way. Collaborations between big universities take time, but there are smaller ways to start those collaborations as well that are less administration heavy. So micro-credentialing, shared courses, shared experiences, it can start there and build to something bigger. Research collaborations, we're already seeing how this is being leveraged to get international grants, or to leverage funding on more than one side of the border. And I think we've only just started to scratch the surface on that. I'll just put this up here. This is an example of a teaching collaboration that Dr. Kashian provided, and also showing how even not just the work is being done, but this is also leadership by example, because it's being written about as well by researchers. So these kinds of collaborations will only grow through this collaboration. And so maybe with that, I will turn the floor to Dr. Kashian and to Genevieve to talk a little bit about what things are happening on Wayne State campus, and to sort of allow us to learn from those conversations that are happening there.
Well, thank you all. It's so good to be here. I've had the joy of working with different groups at Windsor for quite some time, at GLEAR and at Cat's Lab. Even went to a Tigers game this past summer without Cat. but in that, it's all community building and partnership is key to all of this stuff. And doing those collaborations. Brian was on one of the papers that was just shown just a minute ago. The students engaging in the education is foundational to all of this as we build these things. So I feel like it has. I don't feel so like it's the little sister kind of thing. Each university has strengths and the other one has different strengths. I feel like we are behind in some of the indigenous work. I feel we're very behind in the indigenous work. So that is something we want to gain from working with Windsor on this. So there's a lot of different things. And what I wanted to do today is also just show you where we are in the process and where we hope to go. We are still so early on in the process, we're developing it. And this is actually the first time as you heard, we're actually meet and actually starting to flush out, meeting with the president a little bit on how we can build this and what we're going to address and how we're going to do this. So some of the things we're doing to start propelling it forward that we're hoping that Windsor will pick up and kind of start going along this path too. One of the big things was to reposition, and I heard in the previous panel talking about siloing and where different groups are, is trying to break down those barriers. And one is sustainability on our campus was in facilities. I think you call it in operations on your campus. One is moving it out. There still has to be pieces in operations or facilities, but we, in agreement now, are moving it under the provost office. The provost office doesn't sit in any, as we call, silo. So it's going to be repositioned at that level with the center of the UN RCE sitting over it, and then provost and RCE, then Office of Sustainabilities. So getting that repositioned, getting all of the groups on campus. So we're broken largely into our law group, which is kind of very siloed, our medical group, and then the rest of campus, and melding those together within this. So then the next step is we had that list of partners, but identifying both our internal panels, we would like that to consist of a representation from every group: law, medical, engineering, communication, anthropology. Every single department on campus is going to have a representation, a person in-house that represents their position in it. So that puts sustainability now in every single division, which also puts EDI in every single position, because you can't have sustainability without that. Then it also at the same time be going toward external partners in the community. Kat and I were just discussing, and she's right, that working from the youngest too, it's not just stakeholders at the professional level, but through urban parks and various aspects, actually engaging at the youngest levels too, high school levels and whatnot, so that we are providing them an opportunity through our universities, through the centers. So with that, right now we're working on staffing. I'm one of the first positions appointed within, I'm the only position actually appointed right now. Genevieve is with me. She's currently the program manager of our TRUS. It's a interdisciplinary training grant for graduate students that we're using to model the center after, and I'll explain that in a second. So with that, we've identified the need for a program manager. Hopefully the position Genevieve's in TRUS, that's something that can transition into the center when her position is up, and then ultimately finding a full-time position for that. This was a big ask. I thought the university would say no. I want 3 graduate students to be funded by the university under the center. However, those students still belong to their siloed department, but they will work jointly, whatever their department is, whatever their position is, interdisciplinary space to address a question in urban sustainability. The advisory boards, University of Windsor, between both nations and our community advisory boards, identify as a critical issue in sustainability. Those students will work as an interdisciplinary team. Every year will be a new question that they will be addressing. So, and they will have support. Student interns, I haven't got a yes on this one yet. I asked it a little late after I asked for everything else, but we already have 3 student interns in the Office of Sustainability on different aspects. We've asked for 2 more within the center itself to have 5 student internships. I think that's an easier ask than some of these other ones we've already worked on. A designated office space, maybe with a set like this. I'm so impressed with this. But designated office space is huge because we're going to have a lot of meetings together. And then miscellaneous stuff we need to support website, travel, workshops, for symposiums. So we're always bringing people in and fundamentally having support to do so. So we're not trying just desperately to throw things together by just volunteers and whatnot. And support for biannual, probably advisory board meetings where Windsor and Wayne State are together with our partners twice a year to start fleshing out what issues every single year and set new goals. Have been very active through the TRUS program already in community engagement. We will continue to do those things, hopefully also now doing a cross-border piece with different things. And there are things on here like Skype a Scientist that you may already be involved with, some of you. But that's virtual. Anyone can do that, but having a more centralized place and reservoir that when someone needs one, we can go, oh, this is who we have listed in the center, these students, you come talk to those students. Cleanups, you just mentioned cleanups. We have Earth Day coming up. We have a whole bunch. Genevieve, you're hosting one at Belle Isle very shortly. And a lot more going on. My group in particular gets into K through 12 classes in Detroit quite a bit. I don't know how frequent that is, but that's something I would very much like to see the center actually hosting and being a reservoir. The schools come to the center, say, we want someone who can do this. And we say, we have these faculty that want to do that. We have these, it's almost always students, these students, and that providing those opportunities for students too. We put together a list of questions. We're not, I know we're short on time, but these are kind of the things at our next big meeting we're hoping to have in August that we start flushing out, because we are still in the process. We still haven't identified even all the needs, the gaps that we have, and identifying the strengths that the two universities have. So just what are the gaps? What are the needs by the city, the communities? But then there's all different aspects. There's the students, the faculty, there's the facilities, the grants, events, and so on and so forth. So those are the kind of things we need to address and identify. That might be it. So, and thank you, Ms. Schwitz. And any questions? How we are on time.
Does anyone have any questions? I will say thank you so much, Dr. Kashian and Dr. and Genevieve, sorry for being here. And the good news is that because they were coming over today, so thank you, Tim, for including us on the schedule. One of the things coming out of that is that we are actually meeting with President Gordon right after this, and so we will go shortly. But I think it's for a good purpose and a chance to sort of just at least again start making those connections. We talk a lot about relationship building as being at the root of this work. Dr. Brunei, sorry. Just before we break, I just wanted to say, acknowledging Mariana Donna, who's been helping one of our Cities and Climate Action Policy Clinic students, who's been helping Nadia, and we're working with Nadia on some of the sustainability aspects of the conference. And again, kudos to both of you for really taking that seriously. These are not easy things to do, as we talk about in our clinic a lot. So thanks so much. And thanks to Shireen. Gosh is not here. Astini, and who am I missing? And Marietta, sorry, who also helped with a number of behind the scenes pieces for today. So the clinic is absolutely a collaborative piece, and so it means a lot that you all were there to support. Thanks again to our cross-border partners for being here with us today, and thanks to all of you for being with us today too. Thanks.